We begin our journey in a desert, not of sand, but of time. Imagine a world where the horizon never approaches, where every step forward is swallowed by the same featureless expanse. This is the curse of immortality, a life without end, yet without direction. The ancient Greeks understood this paradox well. They told of Sisyphus, condemned by the gods to push a boulder up a mountain for eternity. But his punishment wasn't the labor. It was the erasure of purpose. For what is a task without an end, a story without a final page, a life without death? Psychologists have a name for this unraveling: temporal disintegration. When time loses its boundaries, the mind loses its compass. Goals dissolve. Passions grow stale. Think of a song played on repeat until the melody becomes noise. Without the quiet urgency of mortality, the whisper that says, "This moment will not return," even love risks becoming a relic, preserved but lifeless, like flowers pressed between the pages of a book. Consider this. We cherish sunsets precisely because they fade. The transience of beauty is what makes it ache. But what happens when nothing is transient? When every experience can be repeated, revisited, or postponed? The philosopher Søren Kierkegaard warned that boredom is the root of all evil, a haunting thought in a world where time stretches into a featureless plane. Would we still race to mend a broken bond if we had millennia to apologize? Would art still ignite us if we could paint the same canvas forever? Nature teaches us that cycles define existence. The moon waxes and wanes, seasons turn, even stars burn out. Mortality is not a flaw, it's a rhythm. But immortality disrupts this cadence. Like the moth eternally circling the flame, we would orbit meaning without ever landing. Studies of decision-making reveal a curious truth. When faced with infinite choices, humans freeze. Too much time, it seems, is as paralyzing as too little. Without the pressure of an ending, would we ever choose boldly? Or would we wander, endlessly revising, in a maze of our own making? History's greatest leaps were born of limits. Mozart composed his Requiem on his deathbed. Marie Curie raced the clock to unlock the secrets of radiation. Mortality is the quiet muse of creation, the shadow that sharpens the light. But strip away that shadow, and ambition withers. Why build a legacy when legacy has no end? Why innovate when innovation has no audience left to astonish? The immortal world risks becoming a museum of the mind where curiosity is replaced by nostalgia, and the future is just an echo of the past. And what of our humanity, the messy, fragile, glorious act of being alive? The Japanese practice of kintsugi repairs broken pottery with gold, honoring its cracks as part of its story. Our flaws, our deadlines, our heartbreaks, these are the gold seams of the human experience. Without them, would we still be human? Or would we become like the gods of myth, powerful, perpetual, but perpetually adrift? To live forever is to stand at the edge of this desert, watching the stars repeat their ancient patterns, and realizing, too late, that eternity is not a triumph, but a surrender. For in the end, it is not death we fear, but a life emptied of meaning, a story without an end. We arrive now at the ruins of progress. Imagine a civilization where the word urgency has no meaning, no deadlines, no countdowns, no final acts. This is the second curse of immortality, not just the loss of purpose, but the slow death of ambition. For millennia, humanity's greatest achievements, fire, the printing press, the light bulb, were born not from leisure, but from the quiet panic of time slipping away. What happens when that panic evaporates? Consider the wheel. Its invention wasn't just a stroke of genius, it was a rebellion against the limits of the human body. Our ancestors ran out of time to walk, so they learned to roll. Mortality has always been the silent collaborator in our creativity. The playwright on their deathbed scribbling a final monologue. the scientist racing the clock to cure a plague. Even love letters penned with trembling hands carry weight, because they whisper, "I may not get another chance." But in a world of endless chances, would we ever write them at all? Psychologists call this the paradox of abundance. Too much time, like too many choices, paralyzes. The immortal painter, free to perfect their masterpiece across centuries, might never paint a single stroke. Why risk a mistake today when eternity stretches ahead? Yet it's the risk, the bold, irreversible stroke, that gives art its soul. Without deadlines, we lose not just productivity, but the courage to create. Friedrich Nietzsche once asked us to confront eternal recurrence. What if you had to relive your life, the same joys and sorrows forever? For mortals, this is a thought experiment. For immortals, it's a warning. When time is infinite, every choice becomes reversible, every failure fixable. But progress thrives on irreversible acts, the kind that carve history into before and after. The immortal's life, by contrast, becomes a flat circle, a wheel spinning in mud. Here lies the tragedy. The mortal child builds knowing. The tide will erase their castle by dawn. That knowledge is the spark. Build it taller, make it matter. But strip away the tide, and the castle becomes a shrine, static, preserved, and utterly lifeless. This is the immortality trap. No longer. Compelled to plant forests we'll never sit under, or send messages to futures we'll never see. We might stop building altogether. Why pioneer? Why explore when the finish line no longer exists? The philosopher Martin Heidegger argued that mortality isn't about death, it's about possibility. To be mortal is to live towards something, to let the shadow of an ending shape how you burn in the present. Immortality would sever that tether. The rocket engineer with infinite time might endlessly tweak blueprints, never launching. The composer might draft symphonies for millennia, never sharing a note. Progress, like a star, requires collapse to shine. Nature understands this. Forests burn to make way for new growth. Stars explode to scatter the elements of life. Our bodies, cells dying and renewing, are testaments to the necessity of endings. Immortality would freeze us in a single season. No winters mean no springs, no deaths mean no rebirths. And humanity, unmoored from time's rhythm, might drift into a languid stasis, a museum of the mind where curiosity goes to fossilize. Perhaps progress is not the summit we reach, but the climb itself, the sweat, the stumbles, the fleeting view. Immortality, in its infinite mercy, would deny us even that. For what is a climb without a peak, a song without a final note, a human race without the audacity to say, "This matters because I won't be here to see it"? Imagine a world where no one retires, no one inherits, no one makes space. This is immortality's third act, a society suffocating under the weight of endless life. Cities swell but never renew, minds calcify but never change. Here, in this labyrinth of perpetual sameness, we confront a haunting question. Does immortality doom us not just as individuals, but as a species? In mortal societies, generations pass the torch, youth rebels, age advises, and culture evolves. But immortality freezes this dance. When no one dies, no one truly lives. Roles harden into prisons. The artist paints the same scene for millennia. The teacher recites lessons no student needs to hear. Innovation starves, crowded out by the tyranny of what has always been. Shakespeare understood that mortality gives stories their stakes, but strip death from the stage and drama becomes a hollow ritual. The same applies to society. Without the urgency of succession, the young replacing the old, ideas clashing, traditions fracturing, culture stagnates. The philosopher Hannah Arendt wrote that each new birth is a miracle that saves the world from ruin. But in a world without birth or death, where is the miracle? Where is the new? Immortality's cruelest irony. It magnifies inequality. If only the wealthy can afford eternal life, the chasm between classes becomes unbridgeable. The rich hoard centuries, while the poor remain tethered to time. Imagine a servant who cleans the same mansion for 1,000 years, a laborer mining resources they'll never own. Dostoevsky's Grand Inquisitor warned that humanity would trade freedom for comfort. But what comfort exists in an eternity of servitude? Even governance collapses under infinite time. Democracies rely on turnover, leaders stepping down, policies sunsetting, mistakes corrected. But immortality breeds inertia. Why vote if the same rulers reign forever? Why protest if change takes centuries? Psychologists call this learned helplessness. In time, citizens become ghosts in their own lives, haunting systems they no longer believe can, or should, be fixed. The bonds that unite us fray in eternity. Parenthood loses its meaning when children never outgrow their parents. Legacy becomes a joke. What need for heirs when you'll never die? The Japanese concept of iegara, the family lineage, depends on the sacred passing of time. Without it, we are leaves clinging to a tree that never sheds, never blooms, never breathes. Nature thrives on cycles. Decay nourishes growth. Deserts bloom after floods. But immortality disrupts this balance. Resources dwindle under endless demand. Forests vanish, oceans acidify, and the air grows heavy with the breath of billions who never expire. The economist Thomas Malthus once warned of population outpacing food supply. In an immortal world, his nightmare becomes an eternal sentence. And what of love? The parent-child bond, the friendship that deepens with shared mortality, these rely on time's fragility. Immortals might live forever, but would they still care? Or would empathy erode, replaced by the numb certainty that every loss is reversible, every rift repairable? Given enough time, societies like stories need endings to give shape to their meaning. Immortality's dirty secret is that it replaces the tapestry of human connection with an endless, fraying thread. We survive, but we cease to live. We endure, but we forget how to be. And in that forgetting, we lose the one thing eternity cannot replace, our humanity. There is a quiet rebellion brewing in the heart of existence, a defiance not against death, but against the tyranny of endlessness. For centuries, humanity has chased the horizon of immortality. But what if the true revolution lies in surrender? In accepting that limits are not chains, but the very wings that let us soar? In Japan, artisans practice kintsugi, the art of repairing broken pottery with gold. They do not hide the damage, they celebrate it. Each fissure tells a story of resilience, a testament to the beauty of imperfection. What if our mortality is the universe's own kintsugi, our scars, our fleeting years, the love we clutch like sand? These are not flaws. They are the gold that makes us radiant. The cherry blossom, or sakura, is worshipped not despite its brevity, but because of it. Its power lies in its refusal to linger. For a few days each spring, it screams to the world, "This is all I have, and it is enough." Could we, too, learn to bloom so fiercely, to love so wildly, or would eternal life turn us into plastic flowers, colorful, unchanging, but scentless and cold? The Stoics of ancient Rome whispered a radical idea, memento mori, remember you must die. But this was not morbid, it was a call to arms. By staring into the abyss of our finitude, we grasp the urgency to live. Van Gogh painted starry nights in asylums, Dickinson wrote poems in the shadows of her room, and Chopin composed nocturnes as tuberculosis claimed him. Their masterpieces were forged not in endless time, but in the white-hot pressure of now. Nature knows that boundaries birth beauty. Rivers need banks to sing. Forests need fire to rebirth. Even our bodies are mosaics of cells dying and renewing. Immortality would still these rhythms, replacing life's symphony with a single, endless note. The Zen Buddhists teach wabi-sabi, the art of finding perfection in the incomplete. Could we too find grace in the unfinished, in the life that ends before we're ready? Imagine a world where every vase is perfect, every song mathematically precise, every life a flat line of predictability. This is immortality's promise and its curse. But humanity's genius lies in the wobble of the wheel, the crack in the voice, the stumble in the dance. The poet Rumi wrote, "The wound is the place where the light enters you. Mortality is that wound, and that light." Here is the rebellion, to flip the hourglass again and again, not out of fear, but gratitude. To plant trees whose shade we'll never sit under, to write letters to futures we'll never see, to love knowing we will lose. This is the pact we make with time, to let it end so it can matter. Immortality's greatest lie is that more time means more life. But the opposite is true. Death is the lens that focuses our chaos into meaning. So let us rebel, not by conquering time, but by kissing it goodbye. Let us burn, brief and bright, and trust that the night is more beautiful for our sparks. All stories end, even this one. But what if that ending is not a failure, not a surrender, but a gift? A gift wrapped in twilight, sealed with silence, and delivered by the very hands of time we've fought so hard to defy. For centuries, we've written our myths about escaping death. But the oldest stories, the truest ones, whisper a different lesson. The Norse knew Ragnarok was inevitable, yet their heroes fought with joy. The Buddha taught that attachment to permanence is the root of suffering. Even the stars, those ancient lanterns, burn brightest before they collapse into darkness. Endings, it seems, are not the enemy. They are the art. Consider the campfire. We gather around it not because it lasts, but because it doesn't. Its flicker draws us close. Its warmth makes us honest. Its dying light forces us to say what matters. Immortality would douse that flame, replace it with an eternal sun, flat and featureless. But it's the shadows that make us real, the cracks that let the light in. Every ending is a covenant with the future. That supernova died so a planet could live. The poet's last verse becomes a child's lullaby. The inventor's final sketch becomes a blueprint for a new world. Mortality is the bridge between what is and what could be. Sever it, and the future collapses into an endless, echoing now. We fear endings because they remind us of all we haven't done. But in that fear, we forget. Endings are how we pass the pen. The closing of a book is an invitation to write, to dream, to begin again. Immortality would hoard the pen forever, scribbling in the margins of the same tired page. The Japanese have a term, mono no aware, the bittersweet ache of transient beauty. It is the grief of cherry blossoms falling, yes, but also the joy of having witnessed them at all. Mortality is our mono no aware. It asks us to hold tightly and let go gracefully, to be heartbroken, to be alive. So let us not curse our endings, let us thank them, for they are the reason we cradle friendships like porcelain, the reason we forgive, we create, we leap before we're ready. Death is not the thief of meaning, it is the sculptor. And we, the clay, are shaped not by the time we're given, but by the love we refuse to waste. The gift of an ending is this: it reminds us that we are alive, not just existing, not just enduring. Alive. So tonight, as you drift into dreams, listen for the whisper of your own fragile, flawless ending, and know that somewhere a new story is waiting for the turn of a page.